What are the biggest comebacks in PBA history? We've seen some fantastic turnarounds before, but which are the biggest deficits that were overcome on TV? One of the most exciting things in a match is when a player is trailing by a large margin, but manages to make a miraculous recovery. Their opponent comes out to a hot start, and they start off slow and can be trailing by as much as 50 pins or more, and yet they hang in there and wait for the turning point in the match. It doesn't take a lot for the momentum to swing the other way, and before you know it, they've turned things around and won the match. Being able to come back from a huge deficit is part of what separates the good bowlers from the great ones. It takes a lot of determination and belief, and you need to have an excellent mental game to dig yourself out of such a huge hole. So what are the biggest comebacks on TV in PBA history? That's exactly what I'm going to discuss in this video. I have made a video like this one before, but that was almost 2 years ago now, and since then we've had some new entries, so it made sense to remake this video. So we'll start off this list with number 5, Alex Hoskins coming back from a 45 pin deficit. It was match number 3 at the 2018 USBC Masters, and Alex Hoskins came in to play Steve Klimpkin, who'd won his previous match by just a single pin. It was a rough start for Hoskins, who had 3 open frames out of the first 5. He was down by 45 pins halfway through the match, but suddenly things started to turn around. Klimpkin opened up in the 7th, and suddenly Hoskins had a run of strikes, including this one in the 9th where the 10 was tripped late. In the end, Hoskins needed a strike and 7 in the 10th, and he actually doubled to advance to the title match. Klimpkin didn't do too much wrong in this one, he just had a couple of errant shots at the wrong time, but really the turnaround was down to Hoskins striking out from the 6th. He had a chance to win the title in the 10th frame if he struck out, but he did not, and his opponent Andrew Anderson would win the title. Number 4, AJ Johnson coming back from a 45 pin deficit. We head to the 2023 World Series of Bowling at the Cheetah Championship, and it was match number 1 that AJ Johnson was facing off against Jacob Buttroff, and Johnson would be behind very early on. Now this was a very infamous match because of, it was so crazy. His first shot was a sign of things to come as he threw it in the gutter. Not too unexpected given how short the cheetah pattern is. He could not make the spare, but unbelievably he threw his second gutter ball of the match in frame number 4, and this was costly as he was working on a spare, but did manage to make the spare this time around. Then somehow on the very next shot he did the very same thing and threw his third gutter ball in 5 frames. Now interestingly, Buttroff did foul on his first shot of the second frame, although he was working on a strike, which meant he did not lose any count. He got 7 on the second shot, but even with this open frame, he still jumped out to a 45 pin lead after 6 frames. AJ Johnson continued to fight though, and started to claw his way back into the match. Here is where things got interesting though, because Buttroff left a 7 pin in the 9th, and then went through the nose in the 10th and left a split. However, it was ruled that he actually fouled, which meant that he lost count and had to strike to make the spare. He managed to do so, and it was crucial as it still gave him a chance in this match. AJ had to strike and get 8 pins to advance, and he managed to do that, getting the first strike and then just about mixed up the pins for a 9 count. This was a very wild match, and I'm not quite sure how AJ came back to win with 3 gutter balls in the same match. This was one of the most entertaining comebacks in PBA history. Number 3, Ryan Schaefer coming back from a 46 pin deficit. Now we go on to the 2011 US Open, and match number 2 featured Bill O'Neill and Ryan Schaefer. O'Neill left double wood in frame 1, but then had 4 in a row. Schaefer on the other hand struggled a lot and left an open frame in frame 4. He then completely missed the pocket in the 6th, leaving the 1-2-4-7, which he did manage to spare, but he was in big trouble and was down by 46 pins with just 4 frames to go. However, O'Neill gave him an opening in the very next frame after he went through the nose and left the 4-6-7-9 for an open frame. He then looked to overcompensate on the next shot and was right of target, missing the headpin completely. He then chopped it, and he knew as soon as he let go of the ball. Now suddenly, after two very costly opens, O'Neill's lead was just 17 pins. Schaefer though still needed to find something, and he got a strike in the 7th, but then was inside and went high in the 8th to leave a 3-pin. But the wheels had completely come off for O'Neill, and he did make 2 spares in a row. They weren't great shots, both going through the nose, but Schaefer really stepped up in the 10th frame and bowled 3 crucial strikes. This meant O'Neill needed just a 15-pin fill frame, so essentially a mark, but it was a disaster for him, and once again he straight through the nose, and this time it was the 4-6-7 that was standing, and it was another open frame, which meant Schaefer completed this insane comeback. You have to say O'Neill threw this one away, and apart from the 10th frame, Schaefer didn't really do anything spectacular in this one, but 3 open frames in the back half of the game meant that Schaefer would win. Number 3. Jesper Svensson coming back from a 53-pin deficit. Now I should just mention that numbers 3, 2 and 1 on this list are all the same. They all came back from a 53-pin deficit, so essentially they are all tied number 1, but I'm kind of sorting them by my favourites. So I've started with Jesper Svensson for number 3 when he came back at the 2024 PBA playoffs in the semi-final against Carl Troop. Carl Troop stormed out to a 53-pin lead after getting the front 5. Jesper doubled to make it a 43-pin deficit, but after the commercial break is where everything started to change. Troop opened in the 6th after leaving the 4-7-10, which was easily his worst shot of the match. He struck after that. Jesper left the double wood, and Troop's lead was now 30 pins, so he was still in control, but he left a 10-pin in the 8th, which he missed, after he actually hit his ankle with the ball on the way through. Now, this clearly unsettled him, and you could see on the next shot he was visibly in pain. Jesper then found another level as he struck in the 9th and needed a double and 9 to shut Troop out. That's exactly what he did, and it was a fantastic finish from him to snatch the win. Troop was unfortunate that he hit his ankle on the 10-pin shot, as without that, it probably would have been a different result. Jesper moved on to the final, but would eventually lose in a roll-off to David Kroll, who became that year's PBA Playoffs champion. Number 2. Michael Haugen Jr. coming back from a 53-pin deficit. This is probably the most famous comeback in PBA history, and it happened in the championship match of the 2008 Tournament of Champions. It was Haugen Jr. who was in bad shape, down by 53 pins after 7 frames. Barnes had thrown a double and then a great shot in the 7th that left a 10-pin. If he struck there, this would have basically ended the match right there, but as it was, the 10-pin stood and Barnes made the spare. Haugen threw a much needed double. Barnes went a little bit high for a 4-pin which he spared, and then left another 10-pin, but he still was in control at this point. He just needed a spare and then a mark in the 10th to win the title, but he missed the 10-pin, and now suddenly Haugen had some life. He struck in the 9th and threw a double in the 10th. The final shot left a 9-pin, which meant the scores were even. Now the pressure is firmly back onto Barnes, who needed a double to win, and also there was the possibility of a tie. His first shot didn't look too bad, it just didn't quite recover. He was possibly a little bit fast on this shot, but he made the spare and now had to strike to force a roll-off, and this next shot did the opposite and went high for another 4-pin, and this absolutely miraculous comeback was complete for Haugen. Barnes was certainly unlucky with a couple of 10-pin leaves that could have gone, but ultimately it came down to the missed 10-pin and Haugen's wonderful composure and fight, which won him his first ever major title. Number 1. Ryan Barnes overcoming a 53-pin deficit. Ryan Barnes put in quite the performance at the 2024 Players' Championship, which was his first appearance on a PBA telecast. In his opening match against Chris Vai, he had the front 8 and won that match convincingly, but in match number 2 he showed he was also capable of recovering from a big deficit. He was down by 53 pins after Nate Stubler had the front 5. Now it's quite odd how his father Chris had that famous match against Haugen Jr. where he blew a 53-pin lead, but this time Ryan was the one coming back from a 53-pin deficit. The turning point was the 6th frame when Stubler left the 4-6-10 split. Barnes threw 2 more strikes to cut the deficit to just 8 pins. Stubler did double but left the 3-7-9 for another open. Barnes struck again but had a spare in the 10th, which meant Stubler could still win. Stubler struck in the first of the 10th but then left a 7-pin for a final score of 220 to 224. It was a great comeback from Ryan Barnes, especially considering this was his first ever telecast. His run would end in the next match though, as he lost to Bill O'Neill in the semi-final. Well, that brings us to an end of this video, and there were some fantastic matches there that showed the importance of not giving up at any point during the match, because if it's mathematically possible for you to win, you just never know what might happen. Having the mindset to fight back in these situations is crucial if you want to be a top bowler. I hope you all enjoyed this one, and if you have enjoyed what you've seen here today, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button below. Well, that's going to do it from me for today, and as always, thank you bowling fans, and see you all next time.